The glass doors of Elite Motors slid shut behind him with a soft hiss. The old man, wearing a worn-out cap, faded jeans, and boots covered in dust, paused near the reception desk, completely ignored. He stayed seated, hands resting on his knee, eyes fixed on a red motorcycle behind the glass. An hour went by. No one approached him. But then a man in a suit walked in. He stopped, looked at the old man, and his expression changed completely. The staff in the showroom stood frozen, stunned by what was about to happen. Who was this man? And why did his presence trigger such a reaction from the man in the suit? It was early November in Grand Junction, a town nestled in the western Colorado mountains, where the wind carried dry leaves and the smell of burning firewood. Mornings were cold and quiet, broken only by the distant sound of old engines rumbling through the streets. The town was small but proud, lined with low brick houses, churches that rang their bells on Sundays, and a modern dealership on the corner that stood out with its glass facade and bright signs. Howard McCann, 72, walked slowly along the narrow sidewalk on Main Avenue, his hands tucked deep into the pockets of a light brown coat, worn thin at the elbows. He wore scuffed, stained leather boots and a navy blue cap with a faded logo from a railroad company no one seemed to remember anymore. At the corner traffic light, a group of teenagers in an SUV burst into loud laughter as they drove by, not even noticing the elderly man waiting patiently for the light to change. He walked 3 more blocks before stopping in front of Elite Motors, a relatively new, imposing dealership with mirrored glass walls, polished marble floors, and soft background music playing through discreet ceiling speakers. He took a deep breath. Behind the glass, motorcycles of every kind, shiny, powerful, impressive, lined the showroom, some with their prices displayed in bold silver lettering. Howard didn't go in right away. He stared at a used red Harley-Davidson, a 1998 model, tucked quietly in a corner of the showroom, almost as if it knew that was exactly where it belonged. His eyes lit up for a moment, then dimmed again. He stepped inside. The receptionist, a young woman with round glasses and a bored expression, glanced at him from head to toe. Her posture remained stiff and distant, as if her job included only the bare minimum, and smiling at someone like him wasn't on the list. "Good morning, miss. My name's Howard McCann. I came to take a look at the used bikes," he said, his voice rough but kind. "You can sit over there. Someone'll help you," she replied without even looking up. Howard walked to a cushioned chair next to a white wall covered with modern motorcycle posters. He sat down slowly, took off his cap, rested it in his lap, and remained there, quiet, his gaze steady, but tired. Across the room, 2 salesmen, both young, wearing tight dress shirts and with hair styled to perfection, chatted while scrolling on their phones. One of them shot a quick glance at Howard and muttered with a smirk, "What's that dirty old guy doing here?" The other chuckled. "If he's here to buy, he's in the wrong place." Meanwhile, Howard stayed still. The white lights reflected off his time-worn skin. The clock's hands seemed to move slower by the minute. Every so often, he glanced back at the red motorcycle. The store manager rushed past, talking on the phone, not noticing the man in the chair. A customer in a blue blazer was quickly greeted with smiles and a fresh cup of coffee. Howard. He might as well have been invisible, but he didn't move. He didn't complain. He just waited. Outside, the bells of St. Helena Church rang 3 times, marking noon. Howard didn't stand up. He simply adjusted his cap in his lap and folded his hands. Howard remained seated in the cushioned chair for nearly 20 minutes, still unnoticed. The dealership grew busier. The sound of automatic doors sliding open and shut, the hum of conversations between clients and salespeople, everything moved around him, as if he didn't exist. The receptionist glanced his way, then went back to typing furiously, as if her time were more valuable than anyone else's. 2 well-dressed women walked past him. One held a child's hand. The child glanced at Howard with curiosity, but the mother picked up her pace and whispered, "Don't touch anything, sweetheart. Let's go." 2 salesmen stood by an orange sport bike, pointing out the chrome exhaust details to a young guy wearing a backwards cap and spotless white sneakers. Howard's eyes were still fixed on the red Harley. His cap now rested between his hands, slowly, spinning between his calloused fingers. The fabric showed years of wear. Finally, the receptionist got up and walked over to one of the salesmen. She discreetly pointed toward Howard and whispered something. The salesman laughed. "He's been here since I opened the place today," he said, arms crossed. "Probably just came in for the air conditioning," the other replied, laughing, louder than he should have. After almost an hour, Howard finally stood up. He walked over to the front desk where the receptionist looked at him like he was breaking some unspoken rule. "Excuse me? I'd like to take a look at that bike over there," he said, nodding toward the Harley. She frowned. "Which one?" "The red one. That one. In the corner." She looked over her shoulder. "Oh, that one's by special order only. I just wanted to take a closer look. I was hoping to get it as a gift for my son." She raised an eyebrow, surprised for a moment, but quickly returned to her usual dismissive tone. "Do you want to schedule a test drive?" "If that's possible." "Only registered customers can do test drives, and we need to run credit approval first." Howard nodded slightly as if he understood. "Then, could I at least speak to someone about the price?" She hesitated, then pointed toward an empty desk. "Wait over there, I'll call someone for you." Howard walked to the desk and sat down slowly. He waited another 15 minutes. On the other side of the showroom, the manager, a man in his 40s with slicked back hair, a light gray blazer, and a constant salesman's smile, approached the two salesmen and asked, "What about that gentleman? Over there? Has he been helped?" "Yeah, he wants to look at a bike, but one look at him and you can tell he doesn't have the money to buy anything." "Thought so," the manager replied. "Figured he was just here to waste our time." The background music changed. Now a soft guitar and piano melody filled the space. A woman with dyed hair walked in and was greeted in less than 2 minutes. Over an hour had passed since Howard arrived. He stood again and walked over to the red bike. He leaned in, touching the handlebar gently, like someone reconnecting with a memory. In the mirror, the reflection stared back at him. A tired man, yes, but steady. "Sir," one of the salesmen approached, already sounding annoyed. "The restroom is for customers only, okay?" Howard turned to her calmly. "I didn't ask. To use the restroom, young lady. I was just looking at the bike I mentioned to the receptionist." "Oh." She looked embarrassed for a moment, then walked away without another word. Howard returned to his chair. He put his cap back on and waited. But then, the glass door slid open again with its usual soft hiss. A tall man walked in, well-dressed, wearing a dark blue blazer. His brown hair was neatly styled with gel, and his presence was firm. He paused at the entrance, looked at the front desk, looked at the salesman, and then his eyes landed on Howard. Howard didn't respond to the man's stare right away. The man in the blazer continued to watch him, still standing at the entrance, curiosity written on his face. But before anyone could say a word, one of the salesmen cut in. "That gentleman? He came in early. Just resting, hasn't wanted to leave." The sentence hung in the air like a stone dropped in a quiet lake. The man in the blazer looked away for a brief moment, then slowly walked into the dealership. But he didn't go straight to Howard. Instead, he stopped at the reception desk and spoke quietly with the receptionist. Howard noticed that the man was now walking toward him. His eyes were locked on Howard, and he took a deep breath, like someone gathering courage. When he reached him, he paused, looking into Howard's aged face. His eyes shimmered with something between memory and reverence. "Excuse me, but is your name Howard McCann?" Howard held his gaze for a long moment before answering, "Yes, at your service." "It can't be, The man seemed momentarily speechless. "My father used to talk a lot about a McCann." Howard nodded. "What was your father's name?" "James Thorne. Sergeant James Thorne." Howard froze. His eyes narrowed. For a second, the name brought something back. "Thorne. From Detroit?" "Yes, he passed away last year. but he always spoke about a Howard McCann like you were his guardian angel." Howard took a deep breath and lowered his gaze for a moment. "Your father was a man of honor, a good man. He always said he only survived an ambush in Saigon, in Vietnam, because of you. He'd tell me how, even wounded, you went back under fire to pull out the last soldier." Howard closed his eyes for a brief second, as if hearing distant helicopter, blades, smelling smoke, feeling the mud beneath his boots. Then he opened his eyes again and looked at Marcus with calm. "I only did what had to be done. Anyone would have done the same." Marcus nodded, holding back tears. The salesman who had mocked Howard earlier watched from a distance, confused. The manager approached, nervous. "Marcus, is everything okay?" The man in the blazer, Marcus Thorne, was the owner of the dealership. He looked at the manager with intensity. "How long has this gentleman been waiting?" "Boss, he's been here a while, but we just figured he didn't fit the profile of a—" The manager stammered and didn't finish the sentence. Marcus looked around at all the employees in the store and spoke with controlled anger. "This man right here, the man you all made wait so long, was the one who saved my father's life in the war. Because of him, I had a father who raised me for many years." Marcus looked at the manager, then turned back to Howard. "Sir, may I have 2 minutes of your time?" "Of course," Howard replied. Marcus walked to his office and returned holding a small leather box in his hands. "There's something you need to see." But Howard didn't look at the contents just yet. He kept his eyes on Marcus, as if seeing a reflection of the past. Marcus carefully opened the small box, handling it like something sacred. Inside was a Silver Star medal that had been awarded to McCann. "My father said you never went to receive it. He kept it for you. I held onto it because he made me promise I would. He said if I ever found you, I needed to say thank you and show you what you meant to our family. I didn't think this day would ever come," Marcus said, his voice breaking. The dealership manager, now pale, stepped forward. "Mr. McCann, I had no idea who you were." Marcus looked around. The other employees had fallen silent, ashamed, avoiding eye contact. Howard looked at the medal, then at Marcus. "Thank you for bringing this to me. Your father was a good man. I'm glad you got to spend time with him." At that moment, Marcus turned to the manager who was still standing awkwardly. He gestured toward the motorcycles in the showroom and said, "Mr. McCann, pick any motorcycle you'd like. It's yours. No charge, it's the least I can do." Howard opened his mouth to protest, but Marcus raised a hand. "Please, I never got the chance to thank you for what you did. Let me do that now." Howard sighed, then nodded. "Only if you promise me one thing," he said. "Anything. Don't fire anyone. I can see in their eyes it wasn't out of cruelty. They've already learned their lesson." Marcus looked at the employees, then back at Howard. "Promise." A few minutes later, Howard stood at the front doors waiting for his motorcycle. When he saw it, a quiet smile crossed his face. "She's ready. We'll deliver it to your house," Marcus said, pointing to the red Harley. It had been polished to a shine, with a simple blue ribbon tied to the handlebar. Howard walked up to it and touched the tank with his palm, like greeting an old friend. "Thank you. I used to ride bikes like this a long time ago. I'm sure my son's going to love it." Before he left, Marcus looked at Howard and said, "Because of you, I had years of wonderful moments with my father. Thank you for saving him and for giving me time with him." If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments what you liked the most. Click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story, especially for you.